What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by Virtual Intelligence, your premier partner for client-facing and back-office virtual employees. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Shawn Fitzgerald, founder of Sound Harbor Insurance in Long Island, New York. Mr. Fitzgerald, how we doing?
We're doing great, besides that non-admitted account that I have coming up for renewal next week that I still don't have a renewal quote for. That's a nice size account. So I'm just a little stressed, but we're good. We're going to get there.
Come on.
We're going to get there. Yeah. I'll keep telling myself that.
Those oak cabinets in the background will take care of that account. No problem.
There you go.
Time.
Your new favorite.
We have Elis Umana on the show today, the owner of Connection Insurance. We have had to reschedule a couple different times back and forth, but we're super excited to have this conversation. Elis, thank you very much for being here. We talked a little bit about you're big in the industry with a lot of tech, a lot of different things that are going on, new tools, automating things, all that good stuff. But we wanted to start with, tell us your Scratch story, how you got to the industry, and where you got to today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be on your podcast. And my roots basically just started as a CSR. I was working part-time at my dad's agency, and his agency is very much like a non-standard shop. You know, they sell a lot of non-standard auto, and they write a lot of commercial too, but initially that's a lot of what it was just servicing, calling those pending cancellations, getting yelled at, like, stop calling me, that type of thing. So that's kind of how I started out. And then at 18, because that was when I was 16, when I started doing it on the weekends, because I was obviously still in high school. Then at 18, I got licensed, and then I actually started producing, like, right after I graduated. And then ever since, I just kind of learned the ropes of, what all the policy forms are. I just got curious, like, what's the difference between an HO3 and an HO1? That's how I kind of started off. And then ever since, it's just been like a learning journey from there, and just kind of trying to expand my knowledge. I love going to conferences, investing in courses and things like that. And yeah, kind of like how you mentioned, when I branched off and did my own agency, because I was with him for about 4 to 5 years. I took a 2-year break after I had my daughter. And then after that, I decided, like, now's a good time to kind of branch off and try and do my own thing. And he was really supportive of that. So I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, I just kind of really love the idea of maximizing efficiency, having systems. And when I first started, I definitely wasn't there. I didn't even know what a CRM was. So just to give you an idea of like how behind I kind of was. And then I just kind of started learning more as I went to conferences and connecting with different people and joining the different Facebook groups on, the different insurance Facebook groups, because I'm in all of them pretty much. So that's basically how I got into it, and I've been in it ever since. So it's been like 8 years. Doesn't feel like it, but time flies. So
sure.
Yeah.
Shawn, someone else that left the family agency. We're just gonna everything we plan to talk about. We're gonna. That's a 16.
Is that usually the theme?
Yeah. Well, sometimes we get a little sidetracked with that, but I'll make an effort not to do that. So you started off 16 in a CSR role. I'm just curious of like where you are today, owning an agency, having the experience under your belt now, to like when you remember being 16 and answering the first phone calls and like learning all this, like what were your expectations versus reality in that of the industry?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the time I didn't know much, I was learning the very basics of everything. And
Sure.
I didn't even realize what a broker did. I was like, are we the insurance company? What are we? So it was like I had no knowledge in the beginning, and I was just through training and time and just kind of learning the ropes of like how to do a quote, how to do, the basic transactions is kind of how I started picking up. And obviously over time, once I started learning, the difference between an admitted versus a non-admitted company, I didn't even know what that meant. I started learning, what an aggregator was. That's when I kind of started learning the actual logistics of the operational side of running an agency, because I read this really good book recommended by a friend called The E-Myth, and it talks about how just because you're a good technician doesn't mean you're a good entrepreneur or a good business owner. I feel like I very much had that journey in the beginning, starting off as a technician, actually doing the work itself, and then learning like the actual operation of running an agency. And so that helped me a lot when I opened my agency, understanding already the work and how to develop the systems to actually get people in place to do those roles.
Sure.
And learning to separate the CSR from the producer, because that is something that my father's agency didn't separate. It was all together. And it was kind of overwhelming sometimes. You're doing the servicing and then you're also running a quote at the same time. So it's like,
Yeah.
a lot of multitasking. But yeah, that's basically kind of how I learned about it.
Awesome. You mentioned max efficiency. What are some of the things you've done recently to increase the efficiency at the agency?
So a lot of it has to do with delegation, and that's something that book really taught me a lot about too, is that
Yeah.
you can't do it all. Because when I first opened, I was a one-man shop. It was like I was doing all of it. And you just can't be productive that way. You have to be able to delegate, licensed versus non-licensed work, know where and when to delegate, and really build out a solid SOP that breaks down what everyone's role is. And again, I don't take credit for that knowledge. I learned all of that stuff from a lot of like influencers in the space, like Billy Wagner. I was able to get like a copy of his systems because he was offering those at a conference in exchange for a donation to his favorite charity. And so I was able to kind of like start off and see like from much more experienced, much wiser agency owners who have grown successful agencies, some of them from scratch too, just to see exactly, what roles everyone has in an agency. So typically it's your CSR, account manager, and producer is typically like the setup that most agencies have. And that's the setup that I currently have and what I've found success in so far. I don't want to claim to be like this super big successful agency either. I did just open this agency in 2023. And right now we're at about $2 million of written premium book of business. So we're still growing. We're still not like huge by any means, but I feel like we're very efficient, like for the amount of staff we have, because we utilize a lot of that AI and tech. Like we're not just buying shiny objects, we're actually implementing it and building it into our workflows. And I think that's what allows us to just be able, even though we're small, be able to handle more service or more inbound leads, for example.
I gotta ask you because I'm starting to put the pieces together. So when you worked at the family agency as a CSR, you did a lot of cancel non-pay calls for
Yeah, initially.
non-standard personal lines policies, which I'm sure those are like the worst. My prior agency used to do that too, and it was so hard to deal with. So tell me, how are you handling? I just think this will be helpful to scratch agents. How are you handling the cancel non-pay process now?
What a great
And
question.
how are you using AI or tech to handle that?
Yeah, so that process definitely looks a lot different now. When I started off, exactly what you said, it was a manual process. You pick up the
Mhm.
phone, you punch the numbers, and you call people. Now, what we're doing is the CRM does it. So I have a different CRM for my servicing. And that CRM has a pipeline for pending cancellations and then the cancellation.
Yeah.
And because that CRM integrates with the AMS, because the AMS is where the data lives and breathes. That's where Ivan's downloads come in. Because it has that integration, it's able to automatically pull those cancellations from Ivan's and just automatically put those people in the pipeline to where they're getting those texts and emails. I was playing around with, having AI even call them at one point, just to kind of see what the response would be if customers would respond well to it. But right now, what it does is that they just get texts and emails reminding them, like, "Hey, your policy's about to cancel,"
Same.
and that's basically it's automated now. It's not manual. We don't spend time on it unless it's like a big account that needs a little bit more attention, or if it's something like an underwriting guideline or something that needs to be more hands-on. Other than that, it's completely automated.
That's awesome. What CRM and AMS are you using?
So I use two CRMs. I use Agency Zoom for the sales pipeline, and then I use Insured Mine for the servicing. And the reason for that, because it does sound a little strange to use two CRMs, but they both integrate with my AMS. So there's no double data entry anywhere. Anything I do in one, it does it in all. But the reason why I did that was because I really feel like they both have their pros and cons, and I couldn't pick between just one. I felt like Agency Zoom, the strength was the sales pipeline, the reports, the metrics, the KPIs that it tracks. Insured Mind, what I really like about it is those drip campaigns, the way you're able to customize those emails. It just didn't have that functionality in Agency Zoom because you are able to upgrade to the most like top plan and get those features. Similar features, I just felt like Insured Mind did it better. And Insured Mind had a e-signature built into it. So when we need to e-sign something, all of our contacts are already synced in there. We don't have to do any double data entry. We're able to e-sign through text. I kind of sound like a commercial right now. That's basically why I have two different ones, is because of that. Like I weighed the pros and cons of each, and I was like, okay, they both integrate. And it actually was a little bit more cost effective to do it that way too. So that's basically why, but that's the current setup I have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how, Stephen, I don't know how you do the cancel non-pay process, but that's kind of how ours is set up too, is within Agency Zoom. They, once they get drag and dropped into a certain, in the service pipeline, we have like a cancel non-pay pipeline. And then once you drag and drop the person over, and each one is tagged specific to the carrier that's on cancellation. So when you drag and drop it, they get hit with a custom email and text that basically says, hey, you're on cancel non-pay to pay your bill. Here's the number, whatever, to call the specific carrier. That's kind of how we set it up.
So it's customized to the carrier they have. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's a little tedious, but it makes it more helpful because then people wind up messaging back and say, oh, well, how do I pay my bill?
Right.
and then they wind up calling us, and it causes like a lot of work. So if you're on cancel non-pay, here's how you make the payment.
Yeah.
And that's different for every carrier, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So Shawn, are you pushing them to the carrier to make the payment?
Yes.
So I'm curious, Elis, with the amount of tech and automation and everything, especially, I think the fact that you said, I like both of these and I'm going to use both of these for different things. I commend you. I feel like I use 10% of our agency Zoom just because it's so overwhelming, and I bring that up because you're like, in my head, I'm like, all right, yeah, but cancel not pay. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this and then implement it. And then, oh, this reminder's going here. What have you found successful with building your scratch agency and building these automations and building these processes from your idea to implementing it? I know some people draw it out on a piece of paper. I want it to go here. I want it to go here. This tool, test it that way. The reason I ask is we talk all the time on the show about how there's a million different ways to skin the cat in this game, and I know every single agency has different processes and all that, but I think it'd be helpful for the listeners to hear like how you bring that idea to life and implement it in your agency successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, a lot of it is trial and error. Like I got to put my hands on it. I got to turn it on, implement it. And if it fails, I'll just move a different direction, right? I think the reason and part of the advantage of being a scratch agency is that you are able to do things like that. You're able to play around a little bit more because your team's smaller, your agency is a little bit smaller. You're able to do more of that adventurous testing, I guess you could say. And that's basically what I do. Some of it is on paper. I get an idea and I'm like, okay, I got to write it down. I see a gap somewhere that could be automated or something where we could build a system around to make it more efficient. I jot it down and I'm like, okay, let me try seeing how I can, build out a solution for this. Sometimes though, I have fallen victim of falling into that cycle where I get a little bit too, like I get too in the weeds with it. Like I'll give you an example. For the longest, my website didn't even have a form on it because I was just being a perfectionist about it. I was like, no, I have to build it out. I got to do it like the way I want it. When there are so many pre-built solutions out there for it, I just didn't want to. I felt like I could do it myself. And so sometimes I've fallen victim of that. And recently I signed up with Salt, and that's like taking care of that. I'm like, I could have turned this on a long time ago, and I was probably missing out on business opportunity. But some of the things I put together, but a lot of the stuff is just like pre-built things that need to integrate, because that integration is important because you do want to avoid manual tasks as much as possible. And so my team's small. It's a team of 3, and they know how I am. Like even just a couple weeks ago, I was like, we're actually switching from Gale temporarily, and we're going to try out this new software. And they were just very like, they're used to it. They know that,
Here
you know,
she
I'm,
comes
I'm always
again.
testing out new things. So
Well,
yeah,
that's good. You're the visionary. So we have to expand on that. How are you utilizing? I know you said you tried to use AI specifically for like outbound calls for cancellations.
that's
How else have you been utilizing it, and how has that worked so far?
so I use AI in everything. Like it's in our emails, um it's in our VoIP. You know, every phone call we have, it's AI
Yep.
transcribed,
That's
recorded.
the best. Yeah.
So all these things are pre-built solutions, right? I don't build those out because you could do it. I have seen people like do things with Zapier and things like that to kind of custom build it. But I
Yeah.
always find that it's just better to get the pre-built solution. And it even ends up being cost effective, believe it or not, because if you're doing all these zaps, you know, it gets expensive. And as you scale, you have to maintain it. And it's just like, so for me, I like to have the pre-built solution. So for the AI voice component, I was testing that out, you know, the outbound use. I found it to be good. I just don't think I'm at a volume yet where I need that massive, like, I don't need an AI to go out and, you know, do 200 calls, 100 calls at once.
Yeah.
And so I did recently go to the ABU conference in Vegas, and it was great. I connected with this startup called Kara, and they are basically founded by some agency owners as well who developed it for their agency. And basically, it has different modules in it. So, like, let's say you get a certificate of insurance request, you can forward it to Kara, and Kara can make that certificate. And it sounds crazy because it's like she's like a virtual CSR, right? Basically. And then within one of their modules, they also have the AI voice, and they just turned that on for me like last week. It's been working really great so far. She transfers the calls where needed. And then when she transfers the calls, she doesn't just transfer it. She also will tell you, like, yesterday I got a call from a vendor, and she transferred it to me. I saw Kara was calling because I added her as a contact. And I said, hello. And she's like, hey, Elise, I have, you know, so-and-so on the line regarding this business matter. Like, she was telling me what that person was calling
Hmm.
about. And he asked me, the first thing he asked me, because I said, thank you, Kara, just to kind of like play into it, I guess. And then he was like, was that a machine or was that a person? Because he was like, she sounded really real, but like I couldn't tell. And I was like, yeah, no, she's in AI. So I just thought that was cool that she does that. Like it makes her look more
Yeah.
realistic because she's transferring that call, telling you what that person's calling about, and then she's like, okay, I'm handing off the call to you now. And she gets
Yeah.
off the line. But so far, I really do like Kara. I think that it automates a lot of workflows. The AI voice is just one piece of the software and
Yeah.
the modules they have built out, but it's definitely
So
been
it's like
very interesting implementing it.
it must be like a RPA, I guess, too, because of it does the certificate.
Uh, so right now it can only do a core 25s. And so it will pre-fill, you feed it the insurance requirements. Basically what the founder told me, one of the founders, he was like, a lot of this stuff you would think ChatGPT could do, but it just can't. And he's right. Like I have tried using ChatGPT to pre-fill accord forms or cross-check coverage proposals, and I will find discrepancies in it. And it makes
Yeah.
me kind of doubt it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want it to make me say
Yeah.
something wrong. I don't want to like blindly trust it. And you should never blindly trust any AI, by the way. But Kara takes it to a whole nother level because she was trained specifically on insurance, similar to Gail, right? But Gail is like more so focused on that AI voice component versus Kara is like actually automating a lot of the workflows that we go through day to day, comparing coverage proposals, making certificates, service requests, handling inbound calls, you know, things like that. So it's been interesting implementing it for sure. I'm still testing it out, of course, but so far I can definitely say it's way better than using ChatGPT because I had this large restaurant submission that I was working on, and I was going back and forth with ChatGPT for an hour, like telling it, wait, you told me they had spoilage coverage on this one, and now you're telling me it doesn't. And then it'd be like, I'm sorry, you're right. It does happen. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what to trust
Yeah.
anymore. But then
Yeah.
when I fed it to Kara, Kara actually because I had already double checked everything. Everything was lining up. I wasn't catching any discrepancies. So I was like, okay, I feel a little bit more comfortable having this compare these proposals. And then it also generates a PDF. So I'm able to attach that to the proposal and just send that over to the client along with my video proposal. So that's been very handy as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, AI, it's amazing some of the things it can do. I think you're 100% right. You have to be careful to not blindly trust it. But like
Right.
simple tools like, and I know everyone's heard of this one, but like Otter AI or just a Firefly, like a note-taking app on Zoom. Like Steven, how much did that help us the other day? We were working on a restaurant account together, and it
Yes.
was, I don't know, whatever, 15 locations. And every restaurant is a different location, and we need to know, does it have security cameras inside and outside each location? What are the sales each location? And like, I wasn't planning to get all the information on the call, but the guy he just kept going and just giving us all the info. And he's like, oh yeah, this location, I got this. And
I
like,
love that.
I couldn't even keep up with the writing of it. And then he stopped after like, I don't know, 20 minutes. And I was like, in my head, I'm just like, thank God we have the note-taking AI app on here,
Yeah.
because after the call, I got the transcript and was just able to have a list of all the action items I needed to do after the call.
Yeah.
And it saved our butt for sure.
In
I
my head,
feel
I'm
that way
going,
too.
I hope Shawn took all those notes because I didn't realize the Otter was in there.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right.
I
No,
want
I
to
do
hit
that all the time
something
too.
that you said about, we're talking a little bit about blindly trusting,
Yes.
these tools and all of that. And we've had conversations in our Telegram for the podcast and different things with other agents about like all of these tools and everything are great, but they're enhancements to our services. Right.
For
And I
sure.
mean, like, it's not a replacement. It can be a replacement to our time. If you're comparing two different proposals, if you're comparing these things, if you wanted to find something in a 100-page document, that's going to replace a ton of time, but it's enhancing. Right. And I think when there's so much AI stuff going on in our space right now that it's so overwhelming. But it's just like I talk to people locally in the community, in the business community, who don't use ChatGPT, right? And I always say my suggestion is leave it up on your computer, and you're going to be shocked how often you use it, and learn to use it throughout the day, and just taking it one step at a time and using it as an enhancement of what you're doing rather than completely trusting it. I just think that's a great point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, like you said, it's an enhancement, and any AI that I implement, it's to cut down on time for the team members so that we can spend more time doing more valuable tasks, like making those connections with clients and all that. And like that example I gave you where Kara's making a certificate, I would delegate that to a VA, but then ultimately, a licensed person would need to double check that certificate before it leaves the agency and gets sent out. But so far it's been it hasn't made any mistakes so far on the certificate creations.
Is it good for like just basic COIs where it's just like a certificate holder?
It's actually good for even complex COIs, because the thing is, the workflow for a basic COI, we kind of already had that down. Now Certs is a really good platform for generating multiple COIs and setting them in bulk and whatnot. Where it gets complicated is where you have that additional verbiage where you need to really do your due diligence and make sure that that policy actually does contain that endorsement or contains that verbiage the way that they want it on there. And that's where Kara really takes it a step further. And she's not just making the certificate, but also looking out for any E&O exposures on your end. So she'll write out like, I wasn't able to find this, or the verbiage doesn't quite reflect what's the language on that policy, right? And it's stuff like that where I've tried to make ChatGPT do, but again, I just couldn't trust it. There's some things that custom GPTs could do, like you could feed it an SOP and have it reference it, but when it comes to like insurance specific language and things like that, for sure, I wouldn't use ChatGPT for it.
I'm so stuck on this COI topic now.
Yeah.
Is it, so you're saying it actually cross-check references the policy. So do you have to feed it? Do you have to feed it the policy, or does it pull it from the? Oh, okay, you have to feed it.
Yeah, there's no integration components yet. This is like a brand new software. And I actually hadn't heard about them. I asked them at the conference. I was like, I haven't heard about you guys anywhere yet. And they were like, yeah, we're brand new. We've only worked with about 25 agencies right now. But they started it for their own agency. And I can tell that it was definitely designed by an agency owner because it's like it understands the workflows that we go through on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, it does cross-check that policy, but you do have to feed it the entire policy jacket, which is not an issue. You know, we have everything in our CRM, so
Yeah. So
we have it there.
do you feed it just once and then anytime, like, 'cause for instance, like I
Mhm.
have contractors where one contractor might request, 30 COIs throughout the year. I don't have to feed it
Yes.
the policy every single time, do I?
No. Yeah.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Once you feed it the policy, it remembers that information.
Mm,
And it actually, I
interesting.
would have to show you the interface. You could kind of get it, but or kind of get a
Yep.
better like feel for it. But it's like, it's kind of like a chat GPT interface where you have like a chat and then you have like your different conversation tabs. So you would basically
Yeah.
have one conversation for that client, that file. And then if you needed to compare something new, you would create a new chat, or what they call it, a workspace is the term they use for it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it works.
No, it's interesting. I mean, so basically the
Mhm.
AI is scraping the policy to see what,
Yeah.
is specifically on the forms and endorsements page, and then it's
Yes.
using an RPA to fill in the accord form. That's cool.
And just to
Yeah.
clarify, this Kara, and then we'll move on here before
Sure.
and let Shawn book a demo. um, they're built specifically for the insurance industry. So you're saying like these
Yes.
chatbots and everything are different and enhanced over ChatGPT because it's specifically built by agents for our everyday use. That's super cool.
Exactly. And from my understanding, based off what he said, they're not built on OpenAI servers or anything like that. So it's a little bit more secure in that end too. And that's what won me over because I was like, I use Gale and I'm really happy with it. And I still think Gale has its use cases. I'm just not at a point where I would need both of them. I think it would be a
Sure.
lot of crossover, but I think if you're a larger agency and you have a big need for large volume outbound use, because they don't have outbound in Kara, Gale's definitely still tons of value there. Stuff you could build into the automation, especially if you use Agency Zoom. But for me right now, the inbound was my primary concern. And since it had all these other bells and whistles built in, I was like, okay, this is kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to try this out for a bit and see how I like it. And so
Yeah.
far I'm loving it. So
All right.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm a new Scratch agent. I don't have any AI technology yet. What are the first three tools you'd recommend using for a Scratch agent?
for Scratch Agency, I first recommend building out your systems and processes by actually working in them and seeing like, okay, first you got to figure out like your tech stack, right? And it all has to integrate, like your AMS, your CRM. It has to be something that talks to each other because I've seen agencies that don't have that integration. It's just so much more work, especially as you start to scale. It just becomes a cumbersome problem that doesn't go away. So if you can set yourself up for success by having that in like those two that talk, it doesn't matter which one you use, although I do recommend like Now Certs and Agency Zoom, me personally. Um, then from there, once you build out your systems and processes, I would recommend using AI to feed it your systems and processes so that when you start onboarding people, you can have them reference that custom GPT, ask it a question. So, for example, here we tier our clients bronze, silver, and gold. And so the custom GPT, if you ask it like, hey, what makes somebody gold versus bronze, it'll respond back to what our internal definitions for
I like
for
that.
those tags are. Any little system and process, make a custom GPT for it. I think it's like $20 a month to do the it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
expensive. A lot of these
Yeah.
AI tools are actually really inexpensive. And that's what I love about AI is that it's so deflationary. Because if you think about it, like Kara could entirely replace, and again, it's not there to replace people, but as you scale, it is actually more cost effective to have an AI answer your phone than to hire additional people on the hour to man
Yeah.
those phones. So
And to that point, think of how many things as agency owners we have in our mind of, oh, I'd love to be able to have someone do this, but we just don't have the time. But like, and to your point, it's not replacing a position, but maybe it's taking that tedious work off, making that tedious work quicker, and then they can implement more of those things. So that's a fantastic point. At
What
least,
I gotta ask one more thing. With the custom GPT, are you giving the employees access to your chat GPT, or is it
yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so technically I should, because I think they now actually have like a business
yeah, the
plan
Team
that you
teams
member,
can
yeah.
version.
buy, like a team plan. And honestly, I don't really know what all the differences are. I signed on a
Yeah,
long time ago before they had
I
that.
gotcha.
And it's like sometimes I do wonder, like, should I be doing it the correct way technically? But
Yeah.
technically right now, they just have access to my logins. Like all my logins are stored through a password manager, so they're not
Yeah.
able to even see what the login really is.
I
But
gotcha.
they get access to it, once they log into their password manager. I guess I forgot to mention the other two AI tools I would recommend is a VoIP that has AI built into it. That is a
Sure.
essential. That has covered me a couple times E&O wise from both the carrier side and clients. When they switch up on you and they tell you, no, you never told me that, or maybe you're talking to an underwriter from a carrier and then you talk to a different underwriter and they say something different. There's discrepancies. The AI transcription and the recording has saved me because I've been able to send them that and be like, hey, no, look at this conversation I had. So the AI, and again, that's not expensive dial pads, like $30 a month for the starter plan. The third AI tool that I would recommend is probably like well, I guess there's the CRM and the AMS aren't really AI based, but I guess the last thing I would probably recommend is just using ChatGPT. I know I mentioned the custom GPTs already, but using it for emails, right? Like Superhuman
Yeah.
or something like that. Something that's going to write out your emails for you because that's going to save you a lot of time. So all
Mhm.
those together is already going to cut down so much time than doing it all manually, and it already makes a big world of a difference from the beginning. Even if you're not a big agency, you're a scratch agency. So
Right.
For
that's what I
sure.
would
And
recommend.
even within Gmail now, they have like Gemini's built into
Gemini,
the email platform. So
yeah,
yeah, you can just hit Control H and it says, do you want to polish the email, formalize it, make it shorter?
yes,
And even that's super helpful.
Yeah.
yeah.
Elise,
I
I
think
want to
it's
back up on something that you tried to brush over that I'm not going to let you brush over. That you started the agency in 2023 and you're about 2 million in premium. That's impressive growth. Talk
Oh,
to us
thank you.
about the agency. How do you guys grow like that? What's been the success to grow at that pace? And how do you get your clients and more of just the overall agency?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, by the way. Kind of like you mentioned, there's different ways to skin the cat in this game. I've seen different agencies who buy leads, run ads. So for my agency, it's all organic. We did not do any advertising. We never bought leads. It really just started off super organic. I think what helped is that I already had that background with helping clients. So I had a lot of older clients reaching out to me who saw that I have my agency. And then just the word of mouth, a lot of referrals. That's basically how we were able to grow to where it is now. And some of it is also like the SEO stuff, which I haven't really done anything. I'm not going to claim to be an expert at that by any means, but
Mhm.
a lot of people, for some reason, our Google listings like popping up at the top, even though we don't really have like a ton of reviews. We have like 30, I think. But I've noticed that too, like that hasn't played the biggest role, but I am tracking my lead sources. My number one lead source is just referrals,
It's
referrals
awesome.
from other existing clients, prior clients, and that's just been feeding our pipeline. Our pipeline is very full right now, and I am actually looking to hire another producer to help me manage it. But yeah, thankfully, I'm blessed to say that we haven't had to really invest a ton of money into buying leads or coming up with a strategy. Although I do think that I should be doing that. I should be doing more. It's just right now, it's like I'm just trying to keep up with what I already have going on.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
the 3-person team, is that including you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually
So,
four now. Four.
okay.
My
So
bad.
4-person team.
Yes.
Break that down for us if you don't mind, of kind of the over the last 2 years, excuse me,
Mhm.
over the last 2 years, what that's looked like is building the team, because a lot of scratch agents start as one man shops, right? And
Yeah.
it's just us. We're doing everything. We have all the hats, and then maybe do we go the VA route? Do we go a producer route? Do we go the CSR route? What is and 3 different agencies can go all 3 different ways and have success in their own right. What works
Yeah.
for you is building that team from the foundation.
So for me, if I could do it over again, I would definitely go the VA route first because it's more cost effective and it's just a little bit smoother than trying to find somebody here locally. But what I initially did was actually hire someone locally who is in the office with me. And then from there, I did get a VA, and that helped a ton because when you really break down, and I learned this from Jason Cass, by the way, one of his podcasts, when you really break down the list of what's licensed tasks versus unlicensed tasks, the licensed tasks are super short. and you just have a ton of repetitive, mundane work that doesn't even require a license. And that really should be delegated to a VA, because if you're paying a producer to do those tasks, you end up paying more in the long run. And so when I learned that, and I actually started delegating all those little unlicensed tasks that you don't really think about, that you didn't, it didn't really occur to you, wait, I don't have to be doing this, like putting the information from point A to point B on a rater, right? Or even just bridging the quotes. You don't need a licensed person to do that. A licensed person is the one who has to explain the coverages to the client, but they're not the ones who actually have to be in there doing that. And so all of that is kind of how I started, was just one person with me who I licensed, because that person wasn't licensed, got him licensed, and then hired a VA. And I've since learned that you want to have different types of VAs, front-facing VAs versus back-end VAs. And so that's why I've recently onboarded another VA to do more of the back-end tasks, because the VA I had hired was doing a lot of front-end work, and it was holding him back from being able to do the back-end stuff. So
Sure.
talking like data scrubbing, data entry, it's really important to scrub your data and make sure it's accurate, clean. So everyone in the office knows I'm really OCD. I don't like bad data. I don't want to see typos in the CRM. I don't want to see duplicate files. Like, I'm really OCD about this stuff. And so I need someone to be maintaining that regularly, because I did also learn that the more accurate your data is, the more likely, the higher valued your book is.
Sure.
There's like
100%.
some correlation there, I guess, with it.
Yeah.
And so,
Last question before we wrap this up. If
yeah.
we went back and could talk to 2023 Elis, what would you tell her?
I would tell her to not focus so much on the branding. I don't want to say wasted time. I think my branding's great and everything, but I wish I would have, like, from the get-go, just been more focused on like actually getting the systems up and running and hiring sooner. Like, it took me like almost a year before I hired somebody. And I was over there like not growing as fast as I could, because I was not like in the right mindset. Partly just because I hadn't read that book yet. That book really like helped me a lot. So that's what I would tell her, is like, hire someone sooner and work on your systems now, not your branding.
And we talk about this all the time, but in this game, you got to go through it to learn it. Like, you have to go through the 2 years to be like, I should have done this, I should have done that. But now, for the next 2 years, the next 10 years, how to do it differently. Elis, this was great. We got to mark it on the calendar, have it come back in 6 months or so and learn more about all these tools and see how everything's going. But we really appreciate you taking the time. What's the best way for people to follow you and your agency? If somebody wants to pick your brain, maybe if you're open to that, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you if they like?
Yeah, I'm on all the platforms, so they connect me on LinkedIn. I'm on there like Elis Umana, or you could just follow me on Instagram. I'm planning on trying to ramp up more content and stuff. My username's insurance_lady5, insurance_lady5, and I'm on there as well. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was so much fun talking about this. I'm like a nerd about all these kinds of things, so I really enjoy having these conversations.
No, we appreciate being on. We'll do a part 2 for sure. Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Remember, we have our in-person meetup coming up on July 31st in Washington, D.C., scratchagencymastermind.com. Make sure to check us out for there. If you have any questions, reach out to Shawn and I. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.